Good morning, beloved. Today, I want you to take a deep breath and listen closely, because what I am about to share has the power to change the way you face every challenge, every struggle, and every difficult moment in your life. I know that some of you have carried heavy burdens through the night, that your hearts have been weighed down by worries, fears, and unanswered questions. I know the struggles you face may feel too big to overcome, too painful to endure, too heavy to bear. But I want to tell you this: there is hope, there is strength, and there is a God who is far greater than every obstacle in your path. Imagine for a moment the storms you have faced, moments when you thought you could not go on, when you felt weak, hopeless, or alone. Now, I want you to imagine that same storm being met by the presence of God Himself. Imagine a strength so mighty that no struggle can withstand it, a power so unwavering that every obstacle trembles before it. That is the reality I want to remind you of today. Your struggles, your fears, your doubts, they are not greater than God. No matter how impossible the situation may seem, He is already at work, already moving, already preparing victory for you. Today I am not just speaking words, I am declaring a spiritual truth that can transform your heart, your mind, and your life. This is a message about rising up, reclaiming joy, and smiling again even in the midst of trials. It is about understanding that the God who loves you is stronger than anything you face, and that His strength is available to you every single morning. Whether your challenges are personal, financial, emotional, or spiritual, I want you to hear this today. Nothing in your life is bigger than the God who holds you in His hands. So I invite you now to open your heart fully, to listen with expectation, and to allow this message to speak directly to your soul. I promise that by the end of our time together, you will not walk away the same. You will walk away renewed, encouraged, and strengthened. You will walk away ready to smile again, ready to face every struggle with faith, and ready to embrace the truth that God is stronger than all that tries to break you. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not just a speech, it is a spiritual invitation to experience the power, the joy, and the unshakable hope that comes from trusting a God who is always greater, always faithful, and always victorious. The truth that God's strength outweighs every human weakness is one of the most life-giving revelations a believer can ever embrace. When you truly understand this, something inside you rises again. You realize you are not standing by your own power, and your confidence no longer depends on how capable or incapable you feel. Many times, struggles look so large that they cast a shadow over everything else. They make you feel small, tired, overwhelmed, and unable to breathe. They convince you that you are running out of options, running out of support, running out of strength. But God never consults your strength level before He decides what He can do in your life. He does not measure your weakness to determine your outcome. He measures His own power, and His power has no limit. There are moments in life when you wake up and feel empty, when the weight of yesterday follows you into today, and when even taking a step forward feels heavy. These are the moments when the enemy tries to convince you that your weakness is permanent, that your struggle is stronger than your faith, that your situation is bigger than your God. But the Word repeatedly shows that God has always chosen the weak to demonstrate His strength. He chose the trembling Gideon, not the mighty armies. He chose a shepherd boy with a sling, not a warrior covered in armor. He chose fishermen and tax collectors, not scholars and kings. If God only worked through human strength, most of the miracles in Scripture would never have happened. God delights in showing that your weakness is not the end. It is the beginning of His intervention. When you reach the end of your strength, you are not at the end of your story. You are at the beginning of God's power being revealed. Your weakness is not a disadvantage, it is an invitation for God to step in. That is why Scripture says His strength is made perfect in weakness, not in confidence, not in perfection, not in flawless performance, but in weakness. Struggle may intimidate you, but it does not intimidate Him. The mountain that looks impossible to you is tiny before His presence. The storm that shakes your heart cannot shake His throne. The situations that break you cannot break him. And when he stands with you, nothing stands against you successfully. Many believers secretly think that God is disappointed in them for feeling weak. They think their tears are a sign of failure and their fears are a sign of spiritual immaturity. But God does not reject you when you are weak. He draws nearer. He holds you. He strengthens you. He reminds you that your weakness does not cancel your destiny. It does not cancel his promises. It does not cancel his plans. God knows your human limits, and he provides divine strength exactly when it is needed. You may feel tired, but you are not abandoned. You may feel overwhelmed, but you are not alone. You may feel fragile, but you are still carried by the one who never grows weary. And something beautiful happens when you finally stop pretending to be strong and allow God to be your strength. You gain a peace that does not make sense. You walk through battles that should have destroyed you, yet you come out standing. You face situations that once terrified you, but now they only remind you of how powerful your God is. Every time you rise again, every time you smile again, every time you breathe again after a night of tears, it is proof that God's strength is holding you together. You are not standing because life is easy. You are standing because God is strong. Joy is far more than a pleasant feeling or a cheerful expression. It is a quiet but mighty spiritual weapon placed in the hands of every believer. When life presses hard against you, when circumstances try to steal your hope, and when the weight of your struggles tries to crush your spirit, joy is the force that pushes back. It is the declaration that God is still in control, even when everything around you looks unstable. It is the reminder that your circumstances do not have the authority to dictate your destiny. Joy is not pretending everything is fine. It is refusing to let darkness become louder than God's promises. There are seasons when waking up with a smile feels almost impossible. Your heart feels bruised. Your mind is exhausted. Your prayers seem delayed. Your plans look shattered. In those moments, joy does not come naturally, it is chosen. It is a decision you make not because everything feels right, but because you know God remains faithful even when life feels uncertain. Joy says, Lord, I trust you even here. Joy says, the battle is heavy, but so is your presence. Joy says, this situation may be painful, but you are bigger than what threatens me. When you smile in the middle of a storm, you are not denying the storm. You are declaring that the storm does not control the outcome. The enemy understands the power of joy far more than most believers do. That is why he fights it aggressively. If he can take your joy, he can weaken your strength, your perspective, your patience, and your faith. Scripture says that the joy of the Lord is your strength, not your achievements, not your bank account, not your confidence, not your abilities. Your strength comes from the deep assurance that God is with you and God is for you. When joy is alive inside you, fear cannot fully settle, doubt cannot fully dominate, and hopelessness cannot take root. Joy illuminates the heart in a way that despair cannot extinguish. Joy also shifts your focus. Instead of staring at the problem, you begin to look at the one who has power over the problem. Instead of noticing how large the mountain seems, you remember how great your God is. Joy opens your spiritual eyes to see that God is not only present, but actively working behind the scenes. The smile you wear may not reflect the conditions around you, but it reflects the confidence you carry within you. That is why your joy confuses the enemy. You are supposed to be broken, but you still lift your head. You are supposed to be bitter, but you choose gratitude. You are supposed to be crushed, but you remain hopeful. Joy is the visible sign that faith is still alive inside your heart. And joy does something else. It creates room for God to move. A heavy spirit closes doors, but a joyful heart opens them. When you choose joy, you create an atmosphere for miracles, for renewed strength, for unexpected breakthroughs. God responds to hearts that trust Him even in pain, and choosing joy is one of the highest forms of trust. You are telling God, I believe you will carry me through this. Whenever you choose joy in hardship, heaven takes notice. Angels strengthen you. Peace surrounds you. Hope rises again in your spirit. Choosing joy does not mean the battle ends immediately. It means you refuse to let the battle define you. When you wake up and smile despite yesterday's disappointments, you are declaring a spiritual truth. God is stronger than your struggles. You are aligning your heart with heaven's reality instead of earth's pain. You are stepping into a strength that does not belong to you, but is freely given by God. And as you continue choosing joy, you begin to see that joy is not weak or soft. It is fierce. It protects your heart, lifts your spirit, and keeps your faith standing when everything around you tries to pull you down. God's presence in your life is not reactive. It is intentional, strategic, and perfectly timed. When you face battles that seem overwhelming, when challenges appear unmanageable, and when your heart is burdened by fears you cannot shake, God is already ahead of every one of your struggles. He is not caught off guard by the crises you face. He is not scrambling to respond to your problems. Long before the sun rose this morning, God had already prepared the way for your victory, had already orchestrated solutions, and had already equipped you with the grace necessary to endure. Understanding this truth transforms the way you perceive your difficulties. No longer do they feel like accidents or random misfortunes. They become temporary hurdles within God's sovereign plan. Many believers feel trapped by the pressures of life because they focus on what they can see and understand. They examine the magnitude of the problem, weigh their resources, and often conclude that they are powerless. But God's perspective is far greater than human understanding. He sees the end from the beginning. He sees solutions where you see only dead ends. He sees strength where you see weakness. When you realize that God is already ahead, your heart begins to shift from fear to faith. You no longer panic when obstacles appear because you understand that you are walking into circumstances God has already prepared for. Your struggles, though real and intense, are not outside His knowledge or control. This truth also reminds us that time does not constrain God. He is not late. What feels like delay is not denial. What feels like silence is not absence. God's timing is always perfect, even if it feels inconvenient to your human understanding. When you trust that God is already ahead, patience becomes a spiritual discipline rather than a burden. You begin to rest in the assurance that God has already positioned people, resources, and opportunities in alignment with His plan for your life. You stop trying to force outcomes and start cooperating with the divine orchestration that is constantly in motion on your behalf. Understanding that God is ahead of your battles also gives courage in moments of doubt. When the storm rages, you can stand firm because you know it is not a surprise to God. He knows the enemy's tactics. He has already strategized a way to turn challenges into victories. He has already placed angels to guard you, doors to open, and paths to navigate you through the chaos. Knowing this removes the weight of carrying the battle alone. You are not abandoned, not overlooked, not forgotten. Every challenge has been measured, and every obstacle has been considered by the one who holds the universe in His hands. Furthermore, God's foresight transforms your prayers. When you pray knowing that He is ahead, your prayers are infused with confidence, not desperation. You are not pleading blindly but standing in faith, aware that God has already begun the work you are asking Him to complete. Your faith is no longer reactive, but aligned with divine strategy. You begin to anticipate His answers even before the full manifestation of change appears. You start to recognize His fingerprints in the small victories and the seemingly minor breakthroughs, understanding that they are part of a larger, perfect plan that was set in motion long before the struggle began. Finally, this realization fosters a deep sense of peace. Life's storms may still be present, difficulties may still arise, but fear loses its grip. Anxiety retreats in the face of faith. The weight of uncertainty is lifted because you trust in a God who is always several steps ahead, orchestrating your path. You understand that no matter how complex or intimidating your situation may seem, you are never out of the reach of God's wisdom and power. Your battles are temporary, but His guidance, presence, and sovereignty are eternal. This awareness changes the way you wake up each day. You approach life with hope, strength, and confidence, because the one who holds the future is already working on your behalf. Every struggle and trial that comes into your life carries a limit, even if it does not feel that way in the moment. As human beings, it is easy to feel as though difficulties will last forever, as though pain and disappointment have no end. Yet God's word assures us that every season of hardship is temporary, while His mercy, love, and faithfulness are eternal. Understanding that your struggles have an expiry date brings hope, even in the darkest moments. It reminds you that what you are experiencing now is not permanent, and that divine intervention is always near. While challenges may feel overwhelming, they are bound by time and purpose, and God's presence ensures they will not consume you beyond what He allows for your growth and good. Many believers become discouraged because they view their struggles as endless cycles. They see repeated trials, setbacks, and failures and begin to believe that suffering has no end. This mindset can weigh heavily on the spirit, creating despair and hopelessness. But the truth is that God's timing is perfect, and every trial has a boundary set by His wisdom. No matter how long a struggle appears to last, God has already planned a way through. What seems like a long season of difficulty is often the preparation for a breakthrough. It is a divine molding process, shaping faith, character, and resilience, so that when the struggle ends, you are stronger, wiser, and more aligned with God's purpose for your life. God's faithfulness is renewed every morning, and this renewal is your anchor in times of distress. When you wake up each day, you receive fresh mercy, fresh grace, and fresh strength from Him. The morning itself becomes a symbol of new beginnings, an invitation to leave yesterday's struggles behind and embrace God's promise of deliverance and hope. Even if your problems were relentless yesterday, today offers a new opportunity for God to demonstrate His power. When you rely on His daily provision, you are reminded that your struggles do not define your life. They are temporary chapters within the larger story of His eternal faithfulness and victory. Understanding the temporary nature of struggles also changes your perspective on suffering. Pain and difficulty are not punishments meant to destroy you. They are tools that God uses to cultivate perseverance, wisdom, and spiritual maturity. Every hardship teaches lessons that cannot be learned in comfort. Every challenge strengthens a part of your character that remains, hidden in ease, and every trial reveals the depth of God's sustaining power. When you accept that struggles are temporary, you stop fearing them and start learning from them. You begin to see each difficulty as part of God's plan, knowing that He is shaping you for something greater than the moment of pain itself. This truth also transforms your prayers. Instead of pleading desperately for immediate relief, you begin to pray with faith and patience, trusting that God's timing is perfect. You ask with expectation, not with frustration. You wait with hope, knowing that the end of your struggle is already secured by God's promise. When trials persist, your faith is strengthened because you are no longer defined by what you endure, but by who God is and what He has promised. Your prayers become a conversation grounded in confidence rather than fear, aligned with a God who is both able and willing to bring every season of difficulty to its divinely appointed conclusion. Finally, understanding that struggles have an expiry date fills your heart with hope, courage, and resilience. You no longer wake up burdened by despair, but with expectation for God's intervention. You smile again in the morning because you know that the night of difficulty will not last forever. You can face challenges with confidence because your trust is anchored in God's unchanging nature. Every setback becomes a temporary pause rather than a permanent defeat. Your struggles are limited, but God's mercy and faithfulness are limitless. You begin to walk through life not as someone weighed down by hardship, but as someone empowered by the eternal truth that God's strength, grace, and love surpass every trial, and that every challenge has an appointed end according to His perfect will. Struggles are not merely obstacles in our lives, they are instruments in the hands of God, carefully designed to shape, strengthen, and refine us. Many believers look at their difficulties and see only hardship, frustration, or pain, But God often uses the very challenges we fear to cultivate spiritual depth and resilience. He allows trials to stretch our faith, to expand our patience, and to awaken qualities within us that would remain dormant without adversity. When you understand that your struggles have a divine purpose, your perspective shifts. What once felt like a cruel twist of fate begins to reveal itself as a tool for transformation, a step toward becoming the person God intended you to be. Every difficulty carries a lesson, even if it is hidden behind tears, anxiety, or confusion. When we resist challenges or wish them away too quickly, we risk missing the profound work God is doing in us. Struggles refine our character. They teach perseverance, humility, and dependence on God. They reveal the strength we did not know we possessed, the faith that can rise above fear, and the courage that emerges when every human resource seems exhausted. It is in the crucible of hardship that the spiritual muscles of endurance, trust, and hope are built. The pain we experience is temporary, but the growth we gain is eternal. God's purpose in our struggles is not to harm us or punish us, but to prepare us for the fullness of His promises. Just as gold is purified in fire, our faith, character, and understanding are refined in the trials we face. He uses challenges to strip away self-reliance and pride, to teach us to lean wholly on His strength. When we recognize that God is shaping us through difficulties, our struggles become less discouraging and more meaningful. We begin to approach hardships not with fear or resentment, but with expectation that God is at work, even in ways we cannot yet see. Furthermore, struggles often serve as preparation for greater assignments in our lives. God does not place you into circumstances that He does not intend to use for your ultimate good. Every challenge equips you with insight, patience, and wisdom that will serve you in future seasons of life. The difficulties you endure today build resilience for tomorrow's victories. They teach compassion for others walking through similar struggles. They deepen your empathy and understanding, allowing you to minister to and encourage others with authenticity. The lessons learned in struggle become testimonies of God's faithfulness, demonstrating His power to turn trials into triumphs. Understanding the purpose behind struggles also strengthens your faith and trust in God. When life seems chaotic, recognizing that challenges are being used to mold you allows you to rest in His control. You no longer see obstacles as purely negative, but as necessary components of spiritual growth. Every trial becomes an opportunity to experience God's guidance, His sustaining power, and His unwavering presence. You begin to perceive that the pain is temporary, but the strength, wisdom, and maturity gained are permanent. This perspective transforms your heart, shifting it from frustration and despair to gratitude and hope. The transformation that comes from God's work in struggles also deepens intimacy with Him. As you face difficulty, you are drawn into a reliance on God that goes beyond surface-level faith. You learn to pray with intensity, to seek His counsel with humility, and to trust His timing with patience. Struggles teach you that His power is perfect when human strength fails, and that His grace is sufficient in every season. They teach that victory is not always immediate, but eventual, and that endurance in faith produces a deeper connection with God than comfort ever could. Ultimately, your struggles are not meaningless. They are divinely appointed tools that God uses to craft a stronger, wiser, and more faithful you. The fears, setbacks, and disappointments you face are temporary instruments of growth, each calibrated to produce in you the qualities necessary to fulfill your God-given destiny. When you view struggles through this lens, you begin to embrace challenges with courage, knowing that God is shaping you, equipping you, and preparing you for something far greater than what you currently see. Every morning is a divine invitation to witness God's power anew, and every new day carries the promise of fresh strength, fresh grace, and fresh opportunities. Many believers wake up burdened by yesterday's trials, yesterday's mistakes, or yesterday's disappointments, forgetting that each day is designed by God as a reset, a chance to experience His goodness and mercy in ways that yesterday could not provide. Understanding that a new day is a gift from God, and that He has already prepared it with His power and favor transforms the way we approach life. No matter how heavy your struggles feel, no matter how dark the night has been, the morning is a reminder that God is stronger than all that threatens you and that His strength is renewed with the rising sun. When you wake up with this awareness, your perspective shifts from despair to expectation. You begin to see each day not as a repetition of failures or a continuation of burdens, but as a field ripe for God's intervention and miracles. The very act of waking up becomes an act of faith, a declaration that you trust God to meet you in this day. You smile because you recognize that God's plans are bigger than your fears, and His power is sufficient to overcome every obstacle you face. Joy and gratitude in the morning are not mere emotions, they are spiritual statements of confidence in God's sovereignty and strength. Each new sunrise is an opportunity to remind your soul that God is active, attentive, and already at work on your behalf. Moreover, the concept of a new day demonstrates God's continual renewal of His grace. Every morning, Scripture tells us His mercies are new. This means that no matter what failures, mistakes, or weaknesses you experienced yesterday, today offers a fresh start. The struggles that once overwhelmed you do not have the final word. God's power is not limited by time or circumstance. It is eternal, infinite, and constantly available. When you understand this truth, you stop living in yesterday's disappointments and start embracing today's divine possibilities. You realize that what may have seemed impossible yesterday is now an opportunity for God to reveal His strength and faithfulness. This awareness also transforms how you face challenges. Instead of approaching problems with anxiety or fear, you approach them with anticipation, knowing that God has already positioned solutions, resources, and strategies in alignment with His plan. A new day is a reminder that God is not caught off guard by your circumstances. He has already prepared pathways for victory and set angels to guide and protect you. Every task, every interaction, every moment becomes a chance for His power to be demonstrated in ways that bless, strengthen, and protect you. When you walk into the day with this mindset, you are not merely surviving, you are actively partnering with God in the unfolding of His will. Additionally, a new day empowers believers to release the burdens of yesterday. Regret, guilt, disappointment, and fear can weigh heavily if they are carried from one day to the next. But when you recognize that God renews His strength daily, you learn to lay down yesterday's burdens at His feet. You begin to trust that He has forgiven, restored, and equipped you for the present moment. This trust allows you to move forward with a light heart, free from the chains of past struggles. You are able to engage with life proactively, expecting God to work mightily in your favor and confident that no challenge is beyond His power. Ultimately, waking up each day with the awareness that God is stronger than all your struggles shifts your entire spiritual posture. You begin to live with hope, courage, and confidence, no longer defined by yesterday's failures or today's uncertainties. Every morning becomes a sacred opportunity to experience His strength, to witness His favor, and to embrace the victories He has already prepared. It transforms simple routines into moments of worship, ordinary hours into demonstrations of faith, and personal struggles into testimonies of divine power. Each new day is a vivid reminder that God is active, attentive, and infinitely stronger than anything you face, and that His grace is always freshly available to carry you through. As we draw this message to a close, let us take a moment to reflect on the profound truths we have explored together today. Life, with all its challenges, struggles, and unexpected trials, can often feel overwhelming. It can make us question our strength, our purpose, and even our hope. Yet, the heart of our faith lies in a simple but powerful reality: God is stronger than all our struggles. No matter how impossible a situation may seem, no matter how heavy the burden on our shoulders, His power surpasses every obstacle. When we embrace this truth, we are not merely surviving, we are rising with courage, faith, and confidence, because we understand that our battles are already known, measured, and held in the hands of a loving God who never fails. Each key point we have discussed reminds us of the same central truth. God's strength is unmatched, His wisdom unsearchable, and His love unfailing. Our human weakness does not disqualify us from His favor. Instead, it opens the door for His power to be made perfect in us. Joy is not an optional feeling. It is a spiritual weapon, a declaration that God is in control even when circumstances feel uncontrollable. Every struggle has a limit, every trial has an end, and every difficulty is an opportunity for God to reveal His greatness. We are reminded that our battles are temporary, but His faithfulness and mercy are eternal, renewed every morning with fresh strength, fresh grace, and fresh hope. When we wake up and choose to smile, even in the midst of uncertainty, we are embracing a truth that transcends feelings, circumstances, and fear. God is already ahead of our battles, orchestrating every detail for our ultimate good. Beloved, this message is not just about encouragement. It is a call to action. It is a call to wake up each day with confidence, knowing that you are not alone. Your struggles are not the final word. God's power is. Every tear you have shed, every night of doubt or fear, every burden that has weighed heavy upon your heart has been seen by Him, and He is already working to turn your trials into testimonies. You are invited to trust Him deeply, to smile despite the pain, to rejoice despite the challenges, and to live each day with the assurance that God's strength is more than enough to carry you through. Life may test you, storms may shake you, and obstacles may rise, but God is unshakable, unstoppable, and greater than anything you will ever face. As we conclude, I want to encourage you to carry this truth into every area of your life. Let it guard your heart, shape your thoughts, and strengthen your spirit. Choose to start each day with hope, to face each challenge with faith, and to shine your light in a world that desperately needs to witness the power of God alive in His children. Know that the God who has brought you this far will never leave you or forsake you. He is your refuge, your strength, and your ultimate source of joy. Stand firm, smile again, and walk boldly, knowing that no struggle can ever break you because the one who fights for you is stronger than anything that comes against you. Thank you for allowing me to share this message with you today. I am deeply grateful for your time, your attention, and your openness to receive these words of encouragement. May they take root in your heart and bear fruit in your life. May you rise each morning with renewed strength, face every challenge with unwavering faith, and walk confidently in the victory that God has already secured for you. Remember, every day is a gift, every struggle is an opportunity, and every smile is a declaration that God is stronger than all your struggles. Thank you for being part of this moment, and may God bless you abundantly as you go forth with hope, courage, and joy.